Greetings, traveler. I am Sir Nox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear one? This one is called DM Kills My Character Because They Like Another Character of Mine More. I've been in a campaign for about 2 months with a couple of people I met over Roll20. It was set in a pretty generic fantasy world with a rise in dragon attacks, but I had been having fun, and the other players were good to roleplay with. Now, I'm someone who loves to create characters using D&D Beyond and my own homebrew stuff because I love coming up with cool stories and interesting ways to do stuff. Until then, I had been playing Drake Warden Ranger with self-esteem issues that felt he didn't deserve his companions who basically acted like a hyper kid 24/7. One day, I told our DM about another character concept I had after the session was over. The character was an Orcforge cleric who disguised herself as a human woman to seek the affection of a noble man she loved. Kind of like Shrek. The noble was a jerk and didn't like orcs. She knew that, but couldn't shake her feelings, and I had hopes that if I played her, she would learn to love herself and get over the noble with the help of her party members. When the DM heard of this idea, he said he really liked it, which made me super happy because some guy said he liked my make-believe character. I didn't know that at the time. I guess how much he liked it. Nothing else was brought up about the idea between then and our next session, and I didn't think much of our conversation. In our next session, we were on our way to a cave to take out a group of bandits that supposedly lived there. We were moving along very well through the bandit hideout. When we killed the final guy, the DM said, "With his final breath, the last remaining bandit aims his crossbow at OP and pulls the trigger, causing the bolt to fly through their head and kill them." There was no roll, and I was at enough health to survive even if it was a crit since I was an archer. Everyone fell silent when that happened, including me. After about 30 seconds, the DM said that tonight's session was over and cut off. The rest of us soon followed. The next day, I was planning on asking the DM why they did that, but they had already messaged me before I woke up asking about making my Orcforge cleric. I asked him why he killed off my ranger, and he said it was so I could play the cleric. When I told him that I didn't just want my ranger to randomly die for no good reason, he essentially said that it was already done, so nothing could be done. I asked if he could undo it since it was clearly forced, but he said no and told me to start making my new character on Roll20. This was yesterday and I haven't responded since. I had enjoyed my time up until now, but now I feel like my enjoyment has all been sapped. Based on other stories of this subreddit, I feel this may be a sign of worse things to come, and I think I should maybe leave the campaign. What do you all think? Oh man, this is so many ways you can go about this, I guess. I personally would just play the cleric and see how it goes, but I completely understand killing off a character you've put time into that you weren't ready to just kill off makes absolutely no sense. I mean, why not just send the ranger off and say, oh, they're going to do a different path, and then let them live in the realm at least while you pursue this new character that you bring into the party. An outright kill is unreasonable. It sounds like the DM has their mind made up, and that might just be a personality style conflict. So if you left, you're totally justified. But just weigh out if you like playing in the group, and if this is the one thing that is just super annoying, maybe it's worth pursuing because you might love the new character. Know that in the future, don't ever make reference to any new ideas that you have, because this could very well happen again. Good luck to whatever you decide. Our next tale is called DM Soft Nerfs Characters Instead of Outright Saying Something Doesn't Work. To start off, I hadn't gotten to play D&D with people as a player for a long time. One of those forever DM situations. Some of my friends I was DMing for invited me to a game that was being run by another friend they had. I gladly accepted because I wanted to try an illusion wizard archetype. I joined the Discord the DM was running and promptly made my character. It was a campaign that had similar features to Eberron, except dragon shards were something else. I'll just call them dragon shards, however. Also, since I'm a fellow DM, the topic of fudging rolls came up. Obviously, it's a heavily debated one, but this DM said they never fudge rolls to the party. I drew some skepticism because there is always a point where a good DM will fudge a roll, adjust a DC, or some other aspect of an encounter to prevent a TPK that was unintentionally unfun or some other really important situation that makes a player feel powerful. Later, alone in the chat, this DM told me they do in fact fudge rolls, but they didn't want to tell the party. Which would have been fine if it wasn't for the fact that the same party knew I did, but extremely rarely. The DM was saying things like it's due to inexperienced DMs would need to fudge rolls, or if they were just cheaters and open chats, and that irked me a lot. My character was part of a resistance force against the large conglomerate who has been making the shards out of creatures' souls and mind controlling them. My character was part of the resistance force and had been learning from the leader of it, an artificer, who also happened to be the creator of these shards. I get sent with the party on a mission, and we end up fighting some bandits and a large creature that I guess was supposed to last more than one round. The DM gets a taste of some of the cool stuff my wizard can do that they hadn't seen before. I'd cast in Dragon's Breath on my familiar owl and sent it to obliterate the bandits from overhead, and also used it for scouting very effectively. I also had a spell called Phantasmal Force to put a flaming orb on a creature's head. After the game, DM was listening to us talk about the campaign, and I had mentioned how an ooze would really suck for myself because it had blind sight, important for later. Anyway, on our next mission, we get sent to a Forstead logging camp. There were a lot of those robotic creatures powered by these shards, but their eyes were green instead of blue like normal shards. We find out in a bit that it's related to mind control magic on them. We managed to get our hands on one of them, and I finally am able to cast Identify on it. I'm guessing the DM did not expect this at all because after reading the spell, they give me possibly the most vague answer possible. You cannot tell what spell was cast on it. I think about it for a bit, and since it's a huge plot device after a little bit of intense discussion among us, I decided to cast Detect Magic on myself, so I can tell what school of magic it is. I get told, it's enchantment and necromancy. Then using the same Detect Magic spell, I check our party member who is also one of these robotic creatures, just not mind-controlled. I find nothing different, and they are exactly the same. After more intense discussion, I was finding it really odd that Identify would give me nothing but Detect Magic would. I come to the conclusion that since there are so many of these mind-controlled crystals, it'd have to be something like a Mind Flayer. The DM didn't like me bringing up this creature in conversation because, in his own words, "Let the players be surprised by creatures that powerful." The way I came to that conclusion was because per raw on Identify, it only detects a spell cast on it. If it was a creature ability, I would assume it wouldn't explicitly be a spell, but an innate ability. Me drawing that conclusion using a good few spells didn't make the DM very happy. Oh, also, I could use Wristwatch to send it to another plane and return it. The eyes would turn blue instead of the mind-controlled green, which gave me more credit to my theory. However, I still wasn't happy that my Identify spell, which I used 100 gold for, did absolutely nothing. After much more fiddling through multiple sessions, I gave up because that was likely going to happen, was that we were going to have to take these crystals to the leader of the resistance to get looked at and progress the story. There was no way a character was going to be able to figure out anything because plot convenience. I didn't like this whole a lot either and felt it was very frustrating. Next session. We then managed to sneak into a large auditorium-like area with tons of enemy mercenaries, and a large campsite in the middle of some important mumbo-jumbo going on. The party is in disguise, and I'm some fake super important rich investor and the evil conglomerate for the operation. We managed to enter the tent and find it's much bigger on the inside than outside. Kind of like Harry Potter. It doesn't say that, sorry, I threw that in. There's a meeting happening about destroying the local fae. I forgot the super detailed bits because I was already kind of stressed potentially being put on the spot by being asked something, wouldn't you know it, that's what happened. The leader of the operation, a hulking robotic gnome, oh what an image, was asking me about my thoughts on the situation. I couldn't spit out anything because I didn't want to get the whole party killed. The DM, however, didn't give me a lot of time to think about what I wanted to say. He carried it as if it was a normal conversation. When I didn't answer for a few seconds, he continued to prompt me. I made it clear I was talking outside of the game and said that this didn't feel very fun, and I want time to think about what I have to say. The DM ignored this and continued until I gave a short answer. The game ended and I brought up this part of the session being very unfun, and the DM snapped at me saying, "This is just how I DM. If you don't like it, you can leave. The only reason you were invited to the game in the first place was because our mutual friend had asked if you could play." At this point, I'm sobbing, Thankfully, there was another player there who was able to hear it. However, they didn't say anything. The conversation just went to another thing until it got brought up again, and I was saying I should leave. The DM then apologized, and things seemed slightly better for the time being. Next session, we entered the forest to find the Fae and alert them of what's going on. Wouldn't you know it, there were oozes! Wow, I never would have expected a creature I brought up being really bad to fight against being used against me. How coincidental. We were on horseback and I casted Dragon's Breath on a party member, and that made short work of the oozes, at least. The DM swears that they did not use them because of that, but they also go on about how they are making stuff up as we go because they didn't think that far ahead. Which leads me to believe it's very unlikely it was coincidental. The next battle inside the forest, though, was very similar. A giant robot crab that had blind sight, making my illusions useless again. Blind sight back-to-back felt bad. We dispatched it with effort though. After meeting the Fae, we had to decide how we were going to return since we were in the forest. The party wanted to go on one way and I another, so we decided to split up. I was fairly confident though, since there were Fae with me that could fight it need be. Next and final session. The Fae and I were trekking through the forest just fine. The DM rolls for encounter and it's some creature that can telepathically talk to me being hidden. My DM experience tells me this is a mean lock, but I don't say anything about it because it'd ruin the fun and use my character in a way that would be acceptable for them to act. I basically prepare them for an ambush since it knew they were being followed. My wizard had an insane passive perception of 23, and being prepared for battle I assumed meant I couldn't be surprised by an ambush. DM thought differently and decided my character would be surprised even though it was well aware an ambush would happen. Basically, they used this to prevent me from casting shield, but once I was hit, the DM was saying they could tell I was hurt, so they'd all go after me only. Very cool, I guess. I used shield almost every reaction I could, and again Dragon Breath them to death, since they could teleport right on top of me. Oh, also, the fear aura these ones had only me to roll a single time every time they were within range from me, and not every turn. The way the DM handled fear was fight or flight. If you run away, you can't take action attacks against the creature. But if you fight, you have to use your action to deal damage or cast spells, which also meant I couldn't disengage. I learned after choosing. So I couldn't move almost the whole fight from one failed roll. I killed them with effort, but it didn't feel that great still since I had very little choice in how I could deal with them anyway. Between sessions, there was a discussion about what spells I'd take once I leveled. I was talking about cool spells like casting haste on our rogue, using Tiny Hut or other stuff. Once I brought up Tiny Hut though, the DM was adamant that it didn't have a flaw because otherwise it wouldn't be very interactable. The discussion gets intense again because as I already know, a good DM will have creatures smart enough to ambush players once Tiny Hut runs out, or prepare attacks. I was explaining that I didn't understand how Tiny Hut could be considered a warm and dry place without some sort of flaw to it. After a bit of back and forth, I threw in the towel. I figured this was a sign of things to come and things that have already happened as well. I have to give it to the DM, at least they didn't just straight up say, "The creature knows your spells is an illusion because of this." Even if it would have saved me from putting in more effort into something, I wasn't going to get anything out of it. I can only assume after leaving my character was pronounced dead even though it fought off those creatures, just to make it easy for them. I still haven't told the other players what their DM was telling me about the fudging rolls or other things behind the screen because I want them to be happy playing if they can be. I think knowing this really soured the game for me, but not because it was happening, just that I had to keep it a secret while knowing or being thrown under the bus. This story is definitely not as bad as others I've seen on here, but I felt like I wanted to put in some place because it annoys me even to this day. The too long didn't read. DM makes life miserable, but doesn't blatantly nerf spells into oblivion. Too much coincidental stuff to prevent imaginative gameplay paying off. Got tired of it and left because the soft railroading and feeling like my character choices didn't matter. Surprisingly, I kind of feel like you're in the wrong here. I feel like you just have too much experience in the game, and you have an expectation based on your style, and you're trying to say your style is the benchmark for everything else. Obviously, the malicious, throwing in of trying to make the game crappy for you is not cool, but that seems to have come after the argument. So obviously, if you're in an argument and the DM no longer likes you, he's probably going to do things that make you uncomfortable or just out of spite, which isn't right, but you could tell why it happened. And it seems like you're metagaming quite a bit because you have expectations for things and you just have honestly too much knowledge of the game for you to be a player at this point, because it doesn't sound like you want to be a player. It sounds like you want to control everything and have this meta knowledge and just act on it, and then you're frustrated when things don't go to your style. I would say you sound like a great DM, honestly, because you have so much knowledge and you have a strategy for all sorts of scenarios. So I would say just stick to that, because it sounds like you're amazing at that. Playing as a character just probably is no longer an option for you at this point.